Bring it in. Hey guys,
We're live.
we're here.
Hello, I'm Jenny,
I'm Paul.
and most of you guys know us by now. Those of you who are doing the art subscription with Bon Art Petite and or the digital subscription, thank you so much for your support. It is very important for us to be able to have that level of support. So thank you so much. And are we good on both?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Um,
I know we're live on YouTube.
we are live on YouTube.
Getting it on our website too. I think most people seem to be using YouTube for the videos. So
Yeah.
you can use either or. Tonight we are learning Golden Field.
I will be right back. Go
kind
ahead
of
and
one of
keep
those,
doing your thing.
I was hoping to capture sort of a last month of summer kind of look, even though I know summer goes all the way through to September 21st, but here we are. It's already just a little over a month away till we get there. It's crazy. I can't believe how fast everything has flown by. We thought we'd have a little bit of a break after the Addams Family show that we were really involved with, which was the last half of July, but it's just been crazy. And so yes, when it's crazy busy, the days slip by, and here we are already almost halfway through August. But I'm pretty excited to teach this painting. It has really high contrasting clouds. We can probably zoom in, Paul, to the painting if you got that ready.
Give me a second. There we go.
Okay.
Just want to make sure we got everybody. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, now we're live on both.
Okay. Well, those of you on the website end didn't miss anything. I just was introducing the painting, and I'm gonna have Paul zoom in on the painting now.
Let's do that. So I did change on the Gogh channel. I did
Hi,
change
Marlene.
some of the settings. So we had noticed last week that were some kind of glitchy,
Yeah.
pausy things, and we're hoping that that's not the case.
Yeah, let us know if you notice anything.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we are using all six of our colors that we get in the new kit. Oops, didn't mean to bump that.
Way
We
to
should
go.
probably attach this down. Liquid nails. So yes, we've got our white and black, cyan, magenta, yellow ochre, and bright yellow. I may accidentally refer to this as raw sienna here and there, or this as blue, because these are different paint names, color names than we've been using, but really very, very similar colors.
I can pretty much assure that we will say
Yeah.
raw
we will.
sienna on accident.
So what I was telling you a minute ago is that the clouds in this painting are very high contrast, but they don't end up that way in the end. There are definitely darker bits that will give the high contrast look, but as you can see in step 3 especially, that goes on and you might feel like, oh, I ruined my whole painting, but you didn't, because we go back and we soften that. And I also give you the option of using a softer violet rather than, if you're really scared to put that heavy dark color on there. But I know you guys have done that before with Paul's paintings, so I know you can do it.
You can do it.
Let's do a toast.
Let's cheers to this.
Cheers to water. Paul bought us some beverages today, and we left and forgot them.
We did. So the pre-made Malibu rum pina coladas in cans got left at home.
Well,
so
it saved us some calories, I guess.
yep,
That's the
it
bright
just
side.
means we go out for margaritas afterwards.
Okay, so you have your 4 brushes that comes with your kit, or you can use whatever brushes you have at home. It really doesn't matter. You just want a selection of sizes, and you can use round brushes. I prefer a lot of times to use these flat brushes, but that's just me. Some artists like to use the round brushes. And if I had started out using round brushes, that might be my favored type, but this is what I am comfortable with. If you have a palette knife, you can use it. You don't have to. I don't use it on the painting at all. I do sometimes try to remember to use it for mixing paint colors, and that's only because the body of these paints is definitely a much heavier body than what we've been using, so the pool of paint is like it's a little glop instead of something that kind of spreads out. And so you might find that mixing with a palette knife, you can clean off and not pollute your individual colors as much. All right, I think I've got everything out of the way. We don't have any other new news other than that we have completed our Halloween paintings, and we'll probably be showing those next week.
I've got mine right here.
We can show yours real quick if you want.
Oh, just something else on the palette knife real quick. Mixing with the palette knife is also going to keep paint out of your water cups.
Out of your water cup, yeah.
Yeah,
you
because
just
you're
want
not...
to have extra paper towels on hand. I don't know why there's a pen here.
I'm really happy with this one.
So this is Paul's October painting. I'm really excited for the next shipment, you guys. It's going to be October, November, December, my 3 favorite months to do paintings, my 3 favorite months of the entire year. So we'll be putting out some really good stuff. So this one is called Sleepy Hollow for obvious reasons.
I called it Spooky Hollow.
Oh, you did? I think we called it. I think that the sheets say Sleepy Hollow.
Oh.
Because I thought that's what we were calling it, so I told our graphic designer that.
Well, next time ask.
Oh no, it's my choice. Just kidding. So mine is a black cat.
There's a lot of truth to that, actually.
Mine's a black cat, and it's real cute, and I'll show you guys that next week. So let's pick up our biggest brush to start. Go ahead and dip it in your water cup. I believe I say to start with the number 8 brush, but we'll do that in a minute. I want to mix the color with this big brush. So
we're using the brush and not the palette knife.
Yeah, or you can use your palette knife. Either way, you know, I'll use the palette knife now that you suggested it.
Aha.
So you do want to wipe the palette knife off between color mixing. We're going to mix white, yellow ochre, and the bright yellow. We're aiming for this color right here. It's really golden color. You can tell already I need a little more yellow ochre.
Oh, you mix a lot of paint.
Well, we have to fill in 1/3 of the sky with this color, so...
Okay.
I don't like having to remix paint.
I've noticed.
So I do mix. That's why my palette always ends up looking crazy, because I tend to mix larger batches. And you don't have to perfectly mix this together. Having it be kind of streaky is good. You just swipe this off.
Swipe it off. Swipe it off.
Okay.
That was my Taylor Swift impersonation. It's as good as it gets, guys. It's as
So
good
it
as
is
it gets.
kind of a light golden beige. Yours can be a darker gold. Like, we're going to add to it as we go along.
Are you having a beige moment?
And let's actually put our big brush aside. I know I had this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, originally I was going to mix paint with it.
Oh, gotcha.
But I mixed it with my palette knife instead. So let's pick up our number 8 brush.
Ooh.
And let's look at step 1. We are going to draw the 3 hillsides first. So we're going to draw the fields, this little mountain here, and then this one way back here. So we have 3 ranges we're putting on there. So go ahead and dip your brush in your water cup. Swirl it around in there. Kind of brush it across the bottom of the cup really lightly to loosen up the bristles and dry it off. And let's dip it in the paint. Let's make a couple marker points. Over here in the bottom left corner, I want you to come up about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. If you need a reference, this biggest brush of ours is 3/4 of an inch. Look at that, I nailed it. After all these years of painting with these. And then on this side, we're gonna go from this bottom right corner up about 3 inches, thereabouts. Somewhere between 3 and 3.5. And then this field just sort of slopes. It'll get reshaped as we add to it later.
So you're saying none of this is like a permanent decision at this point? Okay.
As we fill in.
Fair enough.
With painting, nothing is ever a permanent decision. Okay, let's jump from here up about 2 inches, right about there. That's about 2 inches, make a mark. And then this mountain is in the background, and I kind of was thinking like, I don't know, I was thinking Italian landscape here, but I don't know that it ended up looking, it kind of does. So it's just got this gradual point that kind of just gradually goes off and meets up over here. And you can mix a little water with your paint for drawing. I like to do that. I tend to like it a little more fluid for that. Yeah, and then you can kind of soften up if it's too pointy. If you have the Egyptian pyramid going on, you can soften that up. These are more like, I'm trying to think what mountain range, because they're not like the Cascades really. They're wider and lower. So then over here, right as this comes down, actually I think what I'll have us do is from here jump up 2 inches, thereabouts, make a marker point. And then right as this starts curving down, you can add in that other low rolling hill that's way in the background. So then the bottom half can be a little less than half will be your ground, and then the rest of it will be the sky. And if you feel like the mountains that you drew are too tall and you want more sky, maybe you ended up with just a little small amount left for the sky, you can redraw and paint over everything. You don't have to erase anything. Just remember, like maybe add a little magenta to your new drawing color, and so it's different, and then follow that guideline. Everything gets covered up. Let's wash that brush.
Did
hello.
Paul shave the beard mostly off?
Yes,
or
he did.
Yes, I did. I did. And most of my hair too today. So.
Yeah. Why did you shave all your beard off? Just because it's summer?
Yeah, I feel like the big beard thing is kind of a dying trend.
Okay.
And if you remember, I was on the leading edge of adopting the big beard.
Okay.
So I think that progressively I'm ahead of the curve usually on this kind of stuff.
Right. All right, I see our daughter smiling over there. Our child.
Yes, Greta's here. Greta, yell hi. Hi.
Okay, let's take the biggest brush. Go ahead and dip it in the water cup.
That was not Greta, by the way.
Dab it
She
off
does
on
not sound
the
like Elmo.
paper towel. And we are going to now start painting the sky in. So dip it in your beige color. And see how I'm sort of flicking upward as I go along? Almost like it's I don't know. I want to say fire, but then also with what's going on in Maui, I don't like to use that word right now. It's making me very depressed.
Do we want to call it a gradient?
Tie-dye. We're doing a tie-dye effect.
Okay.
Now, I got a decent amount on here, and before I go too much further, I'm going to give you the opportunity to dip your corner of your brush in a little plain yellow and mix that in there. And not smooth it all out. Don't blend it completely in. You just want some streaks of that yellow in there. And then I'll go back to the beige golden color and get some of that on here. Now your brush strokes don't have to be this upward angle. It can be more of a back and forth sort of thing. I know that's what you like to do. And
You know, it's almost like an aurora effect is what you're doing.
yeah, like an aurora borealis. So now I'm going to dip the corner of my brush in just plain white, and I'll get some white
I'm going to try to not
streaked in there, but not over blended.
deviate too far from your instruction.
And if you want, you can, this part's really cool, totally optional. The color goes on pretty harsh at first, but use a tiny bit of magenta. See, I just grabbed, if you can see that tiny little dot on my brush, because it really does show up right away as I say that, and then it's like not on there. But here you can add some streaks of magenta and maybe some more yellow. Those two together are awesome. You get this really vivid coral orangish color. If you overlap into your mountains on accident, don't worry about it. Like I keep saying, we're gonna cover those up. I mean, not cover them up, but we're gonna be adding more paint on top. And you can have a look at your sky, see how balanced it is. Maybe you want a paler bit over here. Just looking at my original, I have it pretty pale over there, but it's not necessary. Kind of just ends up how it ends up. Just like the real sky outside.
And that's the truth of it.
That is the truth. We definitely get a really nice sky show.
Oh, you know,
every day.
this yellow, it works so nice with the ochre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good. I use that in the wheat field later. Okay. So if you have this streakiness going on, don't over blend it unless you really want it blended. The streaks in there are very nice. It adds a really nice touch to the sky. Before we go much further, I want to wash the brush. You don't have to do a heavy wash, just kind of a loose wash and get most of the paint pigment off, but you can see there's still some on my brush. Dry it off, and we're going to dip the brush just in white. And what we're going to do is we're going to really lightly kind of dust in some white along the top edge. Just pull it down into the wet paint that's on your canvas right now. The reason I'm doing this is because we have to transition to blue next. Kind of a bluish lavender, and transitioning from orange or yellow to blue can give you a really either a muddy color in your sky, depending if yours is more orange, or a green color if you have more yellow. Sometimes our actual natural sky outside does have that little bit of green. If you pay attention real close when you're looking at a sunset, you can spot it. So I've got the wet white paint going across there. You obviously can't really see it super well. Don't even need to wash the brush, but if you have a lot of yellow on your brush, you might want to. I did see a little yellow on mine.
And you know what's interesting is if you actually look at like a sunset, next time you guys see one, there is actually like this band of white between the golden colors of the sunset and then the more indigo colors of night setting in.
Yeah.
There is actually a band of...
There is.
I wouldn't say it's white, but it's very pale.
So I'm going to make a kind of light blue-leaning lavender right now. Just scrape off a little cyan, now some white, and finally just a dot, just a little bit of magenta. And we'll see what that gives us. I can tell already that I probably want to put a tiny bit more magenta in there. But it really is a blue heavy. I'm polluting my magenta because I am not washing between, not wiping my palette knife between. That's okay.
The original painting reminds me of many of the rolling hills of eastern Washington that I've traveled through with my dad throughout my life.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, so let's make sure this is still wet. You might even just take a little tiny bit of white and refresh that along here because we've got a bunch of fans on in here. It is summer, things dry fast. Let's go take the blue now, the bluish lavender. Now bring it down. I put very little paint on the brush. Bring it down into the white. Let the two mingle.
For some reason, when you say that, I think of some SpongeBob thing that Hayden used to do. It was like, bring it round town.
Yeah, that's the bubble dance or whatever it was called. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So you might end up
It's
with
a giraffe.
a really harsh edge like that, which I get sometimes. And what I would do in that case is I'll either wash or wipe most of the paint off my brush. And then, yeah, it looks like I need to wash the brush. I work pretty quick while it's still wet. And you can use your brush as kind of a smudge tool to smudge the two together. Or if it's too dry, if everything's too dry, just take a little white. Very little at a time. 'Cause the less paint you use here, the less you're going to have to figure out where it all goes. If you get too much, then you got to figure out where it's going to go. Okay, bringing it up here. I'm going to add a little white streaks. Little white streaks up in here. Just for some atmospheric clouds.
Oh, you said it. Now people are going to paint clouds.
No, we don't want clouds yet. We will paint clouds later.
But you know, often there's multiple layers of clouds in the sky, so there could be some really high atmosphere clouds. Yeah. Know what I'm saying?
Nobody knows what you're talking about.
Never. People who listen do, but people who do not listen do not.
Trying not to get paint on my original over here. I was really happy with the way this painting turned out, because to be honest, having to paint so many paintings all at once to get our first Bon Art Petite box out was a little daunting. Like, not daunting enough that my, whatever level of ADHD I might have, put it off. And I think that's called task paralysis. I definitely had task paralysis. Now, if you want, you can, remember how we streaked in the magenta? I didn't do that on the original, but let's see what it would look like if I did put it on here. Very little at a time, easy to overdo. If you do get too much, use your brush and blend it in, and then add some more of this bluish.
Gosh. I love this paint.
It
Just
is
gonna
nice.
say it.
It's nice. What I'm doing right now is not super important. It gets covered up with our high contrast clouds later. I did just have a little bit of a boo-boo there where I brought too much paint down. So I ended up again with that harsh line. I'm gonna repeat the exact steps I did a minute ago where I just try it with a damp brush or mostly dried off brush. I don't want it too damp. And maybe add a little white in there to soften any weird lines. The other thing I could always do is go back to the golden color, which I still have some of, yay. And you can bring that up just bit by bit. Anytime you're doing something like this, where you're bringing two not necessarily great looking mixable colors together at once, you want to use very little paint. These do make a really nice green together. It's just what level of green do you want in your sky? That's up to you.
Right?
Okay. So that looks about how I want it to. Very cool. Very cool. Now, let's start filling in these two.
Okay.
This one back here gets this same color. So hopefully you have some left. If not, mix something that's fairly similar. And you can use, depending on what you feel comfortable with, you can use your biggest brush or one of your medium-sized brushes. I like to use the thin edge of the brush and just kind of trace along the edges here. You can mix more white with this if you want this to really look like it's further away. That's always a nice touch. Maybe I'll do that just to be different. So I mix a little more white with it. I could even mix some more magenta. We're just on the fly here.
I mean, there really is no right or wrong.
No. So I usually will just trace things off. I like to do it that way and then fill everything in. Don't worry if you accidentally overlap into anything. This is just our base coat, but look how solid that's going on. This nice heavy bodied paint, or actually this is considered medium body, is great to work with. I went to an art show on Sunday, art opening at a winery. It was a friend of a friend, had paintings in there, and her paint was so thick and it looked like oil paint, but it was acrylic. And so I asked her if she used heavy bodied paint or if she used a
Like a gel medium?
like a paste medium. I don't remember what it's called.
Gel medium, I guess, is what
No, it's
we
not. It
use
wasn't
with,
gel. It was like
that's oil.
But no, it was just super heavy bodied acrylic paint. So that's pretty cool that you can do that. I haven't worked enough with really heavy bodied acrylic paint. Now, one thing I do like to do when I do these mountain scenes like this, and I know Paul does it too, I like to paint white down in here while this is still wet. And
Did you catch me already doing that?
No, I didn't. Oh, you're doing it right now, yeah. And just start along the edge and just blend it up into the wet paint until it just sort of dissipates. You might end up even coming all the way to the top of the hill and just repeat as needed. What this does is creates kind of a low-lying valley fog, which looks really nice when you have the transitions between mountains. And there we go. That one turned out pretty good. Next one, I think we just do cyan, magenta, and less white. You can use this same mix here if you want. Just add a little more cyan, a little more magenta.
Daniel, I avoid snakes as well.
Let's see. So this one is definitely more violet in nature, so you're gonna have more magenta than we used in this color or this color. Because we did a really blue-based lavender, and now we want a true grape color like that. Maybe add a little more white to it for me, my preference. It's up to you guys what you do. I mean, everything I choose to do while I'm painting it's just my own personal artistic choice, and it doesn't mean it's right and yours is wrong. Everybody has their own thing they like to do, and I highly encourage that. So when you're first starting out, it might feel more comfortable to you to follow everything I'm doing. But as you get further along and feel more comfortable and have more confidence with painting, you can start changing it up, just like Paul does with my paintings.
And
just
you
like
do?
I do with Paul's paintings.
That's part of the reason why we paint together like this, is so that we show people that it's okay.
It's okay, we one-up each other. Just kidding.
Well, somebody does.
That's a running joke.
Somebody tries to.
It's a running joke. I'm gonna actually just brush some magenta on here, so I'm mixing the color right on the canvas. Because I want more.
But we also, I mean, part of the reason we do it this way is so that, because we want people to understand that it's okay if their hands work different than Jenny's or mine or whatever. And that's also what's really good about the Facebook group and sharing, is that you see where everybody's at, and you're not always having to compare yourself to what Jenny and I do.
Oops, that's too late. But I'm gonna rock it. Yeah, in fact, it's really fun as an artist to look at other artists' work. And we a lot of times will look at what you guys post and think, wow, that was a great idea. Wish we had thought of that when we
Oh,
did
for
the
sure.
original.
For sure.
So again, you can overlap into your field a little, not a big deal. While this is still wet, I'm going to take my white over here, which is getting really polluted. I'm gonna have to get some fresh white. My palette has somehow slipped over into the back rooms. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and brush.
The back room? What?
Well, if you ever played video games or watched YouTube with Greta, then you'll know.
No. Oh, okay, that makes some sense now. Makes more sense, I guess.
We'll just say it disappeared. So I'm brushing the white in there, bringing it up. This is really lightening up a lot of the mountain. I'm not necessarily getting where it totally looks like fog, but it is. It's a nice light base, and I just really lightly move my brush around here. And then we have that one filled in, and we can wash our brush. We can take a sip of something. In our case, we've got liquid IV, which I highly recommend for hot summer days.
The only problem with liquid IV is a lot of it's just plain sugar.
I think it's stevia, isn't it?
No.
It only has 50 calories, I
It's
think.
cane sugar.
50 calories per pouch, which gives you 20 ounces, so that's not too bad.
It's not terrible.
Okay, now
Meanwhile, I'm
sit back for a minute.
painting the armrest
Have a
on my
look at your
chair.
painting. I'm going to need a new paper towel, I think. I'm just butchering mine tonight.
You're just going crazy tonight.
I am. We're going to paint the lower field now, and it gets to be this color, but we're only going to paint just the top portion, maybe down about an inch or so with your biggest brush. The reason we're only painting down a small amount is because the lower part of the field, I'll show you here. See, you can see that small amount right along the edge here, and then we bring in just plain yellow ochre for grasses. Dry that off. Oh yeah, Daniel, we always do 20 to 22 ounces of water with the pouch of liquid IV, because I agree with you, it's too strong and you don't always get all the powdered parts completely mixed in, so you end up with powder particles in your throat a lot of times. All right, let's go ahead and go along here. Don't worry if you accidentally get some of the purple mixed in there. It's all gonna work out good in the end. So we're just looking for a basic fill-in. You don't have to have a nice smooth hillside here. You can kind of see how I'm sort of dabbing my brush around. My goal with this painting was to have something that was sort of impressionistic in a lot of ways.
You guys get 2 landscapes this month.
Yeah, and they're really similar looking.
No, they're not.
They are, the colors are very similar.
Color-wise, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not even going to wash my brush. If you have a lot of paint on your brush, you might swipe it off on your towel or wash it. But go ahead and take your yellow ochre on the brush, and we're just going to flick upward to create that sort of grassy texture that we have done so many times in different paintings. So it's really the lower 2/3 of this field that gets the darker grass. But one thing I want to avoid is like an even line. You don't want it to look like someone came in with clippers and you've got this perfectly even line of yellow ochre grass. So what I do in that case to avoid that is I'll occasionally bring some up higher, maybe some shorter, choppier brush strokes, and then over here I'll come down lower.
It's all about the texture, baby.
You know what I saw online today is that there's only 7 weeks to Halloween. Isn't that crazy? That's just so weird. Like, to think of it in days, there's like 80 days or whatever, but when you put it down in weeks, when you say 7 weeks, that's just like insane.
No, there's got to be more than 7.
I don't know.
No, yeah, there's more than 7 because there's at least 4 or 5 in September and 4 or 5.
I have to look at my phone calendar.
No, listen.
Okay.
4 or 5 in October because it's the last day of October, and we still got 3 weeks left in August.
Yeah, this was
That's
just
way off.
somebody's TikTok.
Yeah, they're wrong.
They were just looking for clout for their Halloween TikTok. Okay, so you don't have to go down all the way. We do add the green grass in the lower part. So
Daniel has a question. How do you avoid getting blobs of paint on those grass bits? Probably less paint on your brush.
Yeah, and I do actually have blobs of paint on mine.
I do too.
But yes, Paul's right. Less paint on the brush, and then also a little more drying between if needed, because the blobs will a lot of times just be because it's not spreading around enough. But in this particular case, having that texture like that is really good. In fact, mine could dry a little more and I'd get a little bit better grassy texture, but we can go back and add some more of that in just a bit. So if you are following the step-by-step sheets, we have come to our dreaded next step. But I think...
Dreaded?
Yeah, we're actually, the very next step we do is the green grass. So, I know a lot of people get very nervous about clouds.
Oh.
And I don't want you to feel that way, so I need to not word it as dreaded. I just know that a lot of people get nervous about them. I used to until I really learned how to do them and got comfortable with them.
This is where we're getting close to the learning opportunity.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to mix yellow ochre and cyan to create a deep green. So yellow ochre here. I don't know what, oh, here's my palette knife. I was looking around for it a minute ago. Yellow ochre, cyan. I usually will start off with equal parts and see how that goes. That actually makes a really nice green. Oh, I love that. And I think we add black to half of it, if I remember right. Oh, you can add in some plain yellow too. If it feels too blue, and you can add more yellow ochre, or go ahead and just scrape off a little bit of the plain yellow. So having 2 different yellows is great. And get a nice green. And we're going to add a little bit of black to half of this color. So what we're aiming for by adding the black is we're looking for like an army green. Sorry, I'm ending up off the camera here.
How dare you?
So there, I've got 2 different greens, and you don't have to over mix them. I really should have an extra paper towel on hand just for my palette knife.
Greta, can you bring Mom an extra paper towel? We have a helper.
We have a slave.
That's not nice.
I don't even think they heard you. Okay, so let's take this green, the lighter of the two, and we're going to start at the bottom here and work our way up, overlapping. You might try adding a little water to it if you feel like your brush is really dragging while you do this and you're not getting, yeah, the water helped. I got a much nicer grassy brush stroke. Let's do min palm. Is it?
T.
T for tight, right?
Yeah.
Ah,
And
okay.
W for wide. I will get you a paper towel.
Okay. So we're just doing a flicking thing, and again, you want to make sure that you don't have a perfectly straight line, so you don't want straight line, straight line, straight line. So to avoid that, I'm going to have you go up. Let the colors mix together if you've got wet yellow ochre on there. So I went all the way across to the far left here.
Far out.
And right now I'm running my running my brush out of paint because I want to do something in a second. Remember, you can always flip your brush around. There's fresh paint on the other side usually. It's been squeezed through and it's hiding out thinking it's not going to be used. I like to use really short flicks and do some maybe stands of shorter grass. Well, they're not necessarily shorter grass, but it's further away throughout here. And it's such a simple thing, but when it's all put together, it just looks like little stands of grass that are further away. And then I'm going to dip my brush into the darker of the two greens and bring that in down here. I'm keeping this right now along the bottom edge, so it's just darker at the bottom. If it's not flicking properly, try adding a drop of water, just a little at a time. And if that doesn't work, clean your brush off, dry it off really good, and just try again. Or wait a few minutes for that paint to dry just a bit more. So yeah, I'm just kind of doing like a little push and flick.
Swish,
and flick. I knew that was coming.
Hello, Hamora. Stop. You're doing it all
Okay, that's
wrong.
enough. So what we do later is we bring in individual strands of grass and flowers so you can see what I painted on right now gets completely covered up, but it's important to have showing through the background. So I don't want you to get hung up on anything here as far as like perfection, because we are just blocking things in now. And just kind of have a look if you've got this. It should kind of resemble that a bit. I think my colors maybe look a little like I could come back in and add some more raw sienna. Or sorry, there I said it, raw sienna. Yellow ochre, I think that was the first time I called it raw sienna. Been working on it. Okay, just plain yellow ochre, that color. And I'm just going back, and now that some of the paint back here has dried, I can add some more. You can overlap it into the green if you want. Let the two wet colors mix together. Get these guys out of here.
Getcha.
This you can use to soften. If you felt like some of your green patches back here are too harsh, you can soften them up if you want. But that's all I'm going to do, I think. Okay, maybe one or two more.
Oh, I bet I did.
I said, don't focus on it, it gets covered up. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's go back and do it.
I probably did hold the paper towel roll right by the microphone when I tore the paper towel off for you. Didn't think about that. Mama.
It was, oh yeah, that wasn't me. That was Paul ripping paper towel off.
That's what Daniel said.
And I know, I'm just clarifying that for everyone who's not reading. That was paper towel, I swear. Okay, washing the brush, drying it off, zooming out. That's what I'm gonna do next. Let's see how far I want to zoom out, maybe a little further. Move my paint palette over. Okay, now we come to adding the high contrast clouds. And you can start with more lavender tone clouds, but I actually started with this color. So that was the grape soda color, or grape bubblegum, whatever helps you visualize it. And
Grape.
I knew you were going to say that. I just know you so much now. It's like,
I mean,
psychological.
we've literally been a couple for
We're on
almost 30 years.
Psychic level now.
You know, in just a few weeks, it will be 30 years since we met each other.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant 20 years. I mean 5 years. We've known each other for 5 years now.
All right, let's go ahead and mix our nice grapey color. It is mostly these two mixed together, cyan and magenta, with a little bit of white just to give it some opacity. Unless you want to start with a lighter lavender shade and keep your clouds soft from the very beginning. If that makes you more comfortable, please do that.
No way.
But I say take a risk and go for it.
No way. Gotta go for it.
So this is very purple. So make sure that you've got a good solid amount of magenta in there. And I'm going to scrape off a little white up here. The white, add in gradually because it does tend to lighten it pretty quick. And then you'll see, once you add the white in, you can see if you need more magenta or blue. I think I need a little more of both. I think I lightened it a bit too much.
You know, it's hard to tell until they actually put some on the canvas.
Yeah, and a lot of times what I'll do is just, because I know I'm going for this color, I'll hold my palette knife up to it. And I can see it's a little more blue. Okay. Messy clouds coming up.
Let's do it. You know who's ready for this? Me.
I was going to see what I did. Okay, here. Make sure.
Quick, my paint is drying.
It's okay. Okay, we're going to work kind of quick here because we want this to stay wet for the next step. And in fact, it's probably better if you do work quick without your brain coming in to make you think too much. So I want you to hold your brush further back, and it's your biggest brush. Dip it in your purple. Just pick up a little paint, maybe even less than I picked up there. And we're going to start by just doing these sort of scooping. And I needed more paint than I thought. So I'm kind of doing this little scooping motion. The clouds are sort of bungled together. We're not thinking puffy, big puffy clouds. We're thinking more like a, I don't know, what would you call this? What would you compare this to, Paul? You're always good with analogies, like fuzzy caterpillars.
I don't know about fuzzy caterpillars.
Yeah, you don't want to do fuzzy caterpillars, 'cause I've seen that before.
I don't know. Clouds?
Make sure you have some that go off the top of the canvas so it's not perfectly framed in. I don't bring this into the golden part too much. You can a little bit, absolutely. If you do, it's not a problem because we bring in some orange and pink later. And now, before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to take a look and make sure that it's not just framed in perfectly centralized. I want to, have some go off the side of the canvas. And now I'm going to wash my brush and work really quick. We're going to take plain white. My white has a lot of lavender in it, and that's okay because everything's going to turn lavender now. Make sure that you dry your brush off really good. We're going to focus on the top edges of the clouds, very little paint on your brush, and just come in and soften the top edges. I'm not touching my canvas super, not pushing down very hard. And you can, my hands kind of gradually start scooting back because I just like to control the brush a certain way that I'm trying to fight. Trying to fight the habit of that. So I do think I could loosen up. I know I've said that in multiple videos. So I'm just concentrating on the top edges of these. See how I'm kind of swirling my brush around? I don't have a lot of paint on here, you can see. Let me zoom in just a bit if that helps. I'll zoom in on a patch of this. You can see how messy it is. So working with just a little white at a time. This is going to turn your clouds lavender with the occasional little white burst in there. But I'm leaving the bottom edges dark because they're in shadow right now, and then we add the highlights from the sun later on. So look at that, this whole area here, it looks really nice to me. Right here, Paul.
Yeah, it does.
If your paint's drying fast, just use less white so that you're not ending up with a bunch of harsh white on there. Or if that happens too, you can add, you can mix up a lavender and just do the same thing with just a light lavender. And it doesn't really matter which direction you curly cue your brush, but I'm doing it in little curled circles like this. I do a combination. Sometimes I curl clockwise, sometimes I curl counterclockwise. And you can keep going with this if you want. Some of these like hard edges right here that don't look so hot, they're going to get covered up with the peach and pink highlights we put on later. So never you mind about that. And you can bring some of this white curly stuff up off the top of the canvas if you want, but not the whole top, because you definitely want some blue sky poking in there. Let's zoom out. So this is about what it should look like. I maybe lightened mine more than I needed to, because you can see it's lighter than it is on here, but that's fine because everything gets lightened up. So the tendency to want to overwork everything is going to be rough here, and that is exactly what I'm going through right now. I look at it and I see this big patchy blob, and it's normal to automatically think, oh my god, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with this? But don't worry, just take a breath, take a sip of whatever you got.
Water, it's not gonna help.
It does though, you know, get oxygenated, take a breath, and try not to think about that part if you're painting until we get there again, because we know that's not done. It's not done at all. We've got a lot more to add to it.
Yeah.
We're gonna go down to the mountains. We're gonna work on these guys. We're gonna highlight them. So we are now should be on step 4, which obviously all of our steps have multiple steps on them. So yeah, actually we have been in step 4 because step 4 was the brushing up the white on the top of the clouds. Looking here, mountain highlights. So we're going to use our number 8 brush, and we're going to add golden highlights to the left side of each of these hills, thinking that, okay, later on we put a sun over here. You probably didn't missed it on the original. It's there. It's just very subtle because of how light my sky is. And so the sun is going to be casting these golden highlights on this side, and then on the opposite side we're going to put some pink and a little golden. So we want to mix with our number 8 brush. I still have some of my beige left over, and what I think I'm going to do is just put a little more yellow in there. So that was yellow, ochre, and white. And you don't need much paint at all. It's real easy to make it's real easy to overdo it when you paint it on the mountains. But we don't want to do too much. I think I'm going to grab some more white. I wanted to mention too, so those of you guys who've been using these paint bottles for a while, sometimes you'll notice this cap is kind of hard to separate, to open up, because you get a glob of paint there, you get a glob of paint there, and they create a glue. And a lot of times you get paint on your thumb from opening it up. And what I've been doing here is just unscrewing this part, and it works perfect every time. So that will take care of that. I don't even know why they needed the squeeze caps on there.
Is it just a small hole?
Yeah.
No. I hadn't looked yet. You could run into the same issue though with it gluing that.
No. Okay, so I've got not a lot of paint on the brush. Let's zoom in. And what I want to do is kind of scrape this down this side, letting my brush run out of paint, so you can see I don't have a lot of paint on. Now, Paul pointed out something that I tend to do, which really made me think about it, and he's right.
And I just want to point out, though, that it was not just like an arbitrary, I just pointed it out. We were talking about it.
You didn't let me finish.
I know. I just want to make sure people weren't like, wow, Paul's just a jerk who just points out flaws.
So when we did our last painting, which was the Vanishing Horizons, I kept saying my mountain looked plastic wrapped. And I'm just lightening my color here a little bit and adding a bit more paint. I think I have too little. And he said, I know why it looks that way. And the reason why is because I tend to leave an outline. So you can see that real thin outline along there and there. And I think my Vanishing Horizons is right behind you. Yes, it is. There it is. So this is the one I did of Paul's. And you can see I leave that outline there. Maybe you like that look. It's something I'm trying to push through to make a more natural looking landscape. I mean, not 100% natural, but I like the mountains to look a little more natural. So I cleaned off a lot of the paint off my brush. I'm just sort of using a little water here. Felt like I was getting too much paint on. And you want to leave little dark spots because those are going to be little crevices and whatnot. And you can even create a glacier. Like Mount Hood has this little scoop like this. It has this ridge. I don't know what, maybe it's called Hogsback. I can't remember. But look at that. That looks cool. This part I don't love as much, where my brush was running out of paint, but I'm going to come back later with pink so I can fix that up. You can add a little water to your paint if your brush is dragging a little. And we're going to come along here. Same thing. I'm trying not to leave that outline there so I don't have plastic wrapped mountains. So yeah, and holding the brush back. Further back on the handle is very helpful for that. Trying to think of it as like rock and snow. You know, a lot of times these kind of mountains have snow on them. Rock and snow do not blend in nature, so they won't blend, shouldn't blend on your painting. So that's why you'll have these darker streaks. And maybe these spots where you have a stronger highlight because there's a ridge that bumps up. And the top edge is what's going to grab the most highlight. So your strongest highlight is going to be up here. And then it just sort of dissipates down. I feel like I'm getting it over here. But I do see I left a little outline. Come on, I can fix that up. Why am I so afraid to go to the very top? I think maybe there's that whole like, oh, it's going to disappear into the sky. But it doesn't. You can still see it. Okay. Now, you can add some residual golden highlights on the other side, just less, because the whole sky down here is golden. You're going to get some reflection, but we want to keep the concentrated, stronger gold over here. And this is a process. You can gradually, like I could come back in and I could add a little more, some stronger pieces. Not like you don't add stronger highlights throughout the whole thing. You just add stronger pieces, I guess.
Fight that urge to blend.
Fight the urge to blend.
I think that's probably the number one thing I would recommend is be a little bolder than you think you need to be. And
Yeah.
that's for anybody. You know, our instinct is to smooth it out, and we don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to add a little water to my paint for this particular mountain. Wipe it off. So I'm just adding a little bit of golden on this top edge here. And over here.
Now, there are times where a little bit of that outline is acceptable. Like if it's like where there's a shadow. Like maybe there's a bump that's sticking up that's casting a shadow along the ridge.
You just don't want it along the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So there we go. I don't know what happened here. We're gonna add. I think what I'm seeing here is my original outline of the mountain. It's like, what is that line from? I bet you I could touch it up real quick. Maybe. My original outline didn't get totally covered up. I missed it.
I know Daniel loves sketching
Yeah.
mountains. Does a lot of that.
So let's make pink. We're going to make pink with magenta and white. Let me zoom out so you can see me mix it. White. We are making Barbie pink. Oops. Okay, didn't mean that.
Keyword.
Keyword, Barbie. Barbie. Not Ken pink. We're making Barbie pink. Okay, so yeah, here I just scraped off a little. You want more white than magenta. And just gradually add more magenta until you get kind of a cotton candy pink. Barbie pink, that's what I'm looking for. I guess it's a little lighter than Barbie pink. Just a little more pastel. And I'll zoom back in. Let's get some pink. Let's have a look at the original. So you see the yellow that I put in there. For some reason it went on a lot smoother. I was trying to figure that out, but maybe it's just because when I put the pink on later, it helped blend everything in better. Let's go ahead and add it in. So you can see the pink there, wherever you want to add it. Just a little at a time, not a lot of paint on the brush. Hold the brush handle or your hands on the handle way back there. You can give a try to adding a little water to your paint, which I just did. Sorry, that was off the camera. So the zoom in. And I will add some pink over here. So for this side over here, I could take and add just a little more magenta to make it a little bit darker pink. And in a while, we're actually going to add some kind of coral orange tones too. Yeah, I like the little bit darker pink over here just because this side is supposed to be the darker side. Keep a loose grip on your brush. Grip it way back here. And now back to this side, I'll use the lighter pink. I don't have enough paint on my brush to even warrant washing the brush, so I didn't. we go. This is very soft and not super harsh. So it is something you can build on if you want. And I just kind of let it dissipate out here. And then I will put, again, the little bit darker pink on the other side.
I just got the strongest whiff of liquid IV.
That's weird.
Like, it was like, wow. You know, like when you first open it and the dust goes up your nose?
Yeah.
It was like that.
Everybody knows that feeling. Everybody who drinks liquid IV.
Or if you remember Kool-Aid or Tang.
My mom never let us have that. Okay, I'm going to, if you look at my original here, you can see that we have the kind of, I want to call it like coral, but it's kind of orangish. It's this color, but we'll add that later. So for now, what I want to do is I want to, because I've got the pink, I believe this is the time that we add pink to the clouds. Just looking. This one has so many instructions, but we're getting through it good. Yes. Step 5, clouds.
Crystal light.
And back tree line. So I'm going to use this brush. I'm going to use my light pink. Let's zoom in on the original and talk about it for a second. I'm already zoomed in. Nice. So here you can see my dark purple that's on there with the white. So we've got pale lavender up here. I have a lot more white on my new one. That's okay. What I did with this number 8 brush in the pink is I did this sort of scooping motion and came through and picked out what I would see as like the bottom edges of some of the clouds. But then I also painted additional clouds that aren't related to these dark purple ones that are way back here, and they're very subtle because they're on top of that golden sky, and the colors are not super unlike each other, so that works out and makes it nice and subtle. So if you need to make more light pink, please do that. But we're aiming for that kind of slightly lighter Barbie pink. Lighter than Barbie pink. And when I say the bottom edges of the clouds, I don't want you to just go along this bottom strip. These up here are also going to have a bottom edge. And if they don't, you can just make one. You can create one out of nothing, and then it's the bottom edge. I actually need to make some more of this color. And here is where you can use quite a lot of paint. Like here, I'm going to fix this part that I talked about earlier. Any of these spots where it's really harsh and you want to soften it up, look at that. It's like it never was. The magic of paint. Again, try to hold your brush further back. I just had to remind myself and scoot my hand down. So like I have a bottom edge up here. Just doing a little scoop motion, like a, I don't know what I would call that brush stroke, a scoopy brush stroke. Technical terms. I looked at a lot of different paintings that had clouds like this and decided I wanted to give it a go and have you guys give it a go with me, so I wasn't alone in this adventure.
Gee, thanks, Jenny.
This is the type of cloud I've always wanted to paint. And you can just let your brush run out of paint. And you remember earlier we were doing that sort of swirly curly thing? You can do this to the top of any of these and bring that pink up. If I wanted to soften this more, I could add some pink, create another bottom edge that doesn't exist here. I keep running out of paint. It's just drying really fast in here. Just mixing some more real quick. So these, we're going to go beyond this mass of what we started with now and create the clouds that are not attached to that. So these are little stragglers. And I'm using the same brush stroke that I was using for the pink up here. I'm just kind of doing this little scoop motion. I'm not making big billowy clouds. These are more like the long stretched out wispy kind. You see on those late summer nights as the sun is setting. Sometimes you might just have a few little dashes. You can have them down low. All of these little things are going to just add to the beauty of your sky. So don't let your brain play the tricks on you, because you knew how it looked a little bit ago when it was super harsh. Because my brain tends to do that too, where you remember that and then you're just thinking it's always going to look like that. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. That looks pretty nice. I have to say I like it. I like it. I have probably a few more clouds in this one than I did on the original. Maybe? Maybe. But let's do we'll let that dry. I'm going to add some orange to it in a bit. I need a sip of my water. It does look like pink insulation. Yes, we're painting pink insulation. Okay. Now we're going to add the back tree line. Not everything involved with the tree line, just the base. So you see it's got yellow highlights on it. We add those later. And for this base, I thought of it as like shrubs or trees. So I did, you know, kind of where I came up in little clumps here and there. Tried not to make it too planned out, like there's an HOA here. Didn't want that look at all. But color-wise, we need to make this color again. So mine is all dried up. We want to use our number 8 brush. And the colors we use to make that are cyan, yellow ochre, and a little black. And you can put some regular yellow in there too, but it'll probably get completely drowned out by the black. So let's get my pink tinted. I keep forgetting to wipe it off completely, but it's dried on there now. Cyan. I'll just make it right here. Yellow ochre. I keep forgetting to wash this or wipe this between. And a little black. So that's really blue heavy.
Which part are we working on now?
The tree line in the back.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna, since it's blue heavy, I'll add a little yellow, maybe a little more yellow ochre. And then I definitely need to add just a bit more black to darken everything up. We want an army green. Our paint's really drying.
Well, it's quite warm and we've got a fan blowing on us. So
I'm going to dip my palette knife in the water and just swirl that water in there. Not to thin it out a ton, but just a bit. Now I wipe that off. Okay, that took the pink off too. That's nice. Okay. Okay, so if you've got your step sheet, step 5, have a look at the tree line there for a reference if needed. Let's start way down here, and we're just dabbing. Just dab like a little shrub. Like there's some kind of, I don't know what this would be. Some Italian shrub. And you can come down onto the field a bit too occasionally. Now I'm going to make another. Now one thing you can do, you can, rather than filling each one in individually, you can kind of draw out your line that you want. I often will do it that way. You see, I'm trying to make it uneven, like sometimes I'm making taller ones. cross over here, and especially right here, I've got this little spot where the mountain could be covered up there and look a little bit better. I'm gonna come to about right here, but you could go all the way across. It looks really dark, almost black. That was just my choice. If you want to make yours a little bit lighter green, you can, but again, we come in with highlights and that changes it up anyway. So see how I'm occasionally coming down onto the field? Zoom in just a little so you can see up close. It's rather messy. Okay. I'm going to flip-flop a step or two here just because we have this color already. And this is something we do later, so we might as well just do it now while we have the color. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some grassier shapes using a small brush down in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my number 8, I'm going to add a drop of water to that, and I'm going to add just a little more yellow ochre to the color, because I feel like it's started to get really dark. Okay, just maybe had too much black, which works great for back here. Oops, dang it. Look at that.
Look at that, look at that.
What a mess. Okay. A little more yellow ochre.
Which part are you working on now?
We're changing a step around just because we have this color mixed already.
Uh-huh.
And I added a little water and a little more yellow ochre to my color here just to lighten it a touch. And let's take our littlest brush, dip it in the water, and loosen up those bristles. So here I've got my paint, not a ton of paint on the brush, just a little. And I want to come in and I want to flick some short little stands of longer grasses down in here, which will be great when we add our flowers in later. And they can come out of wherever you want them to come out of. You don't have to attach it to anything. I keep it in the green area, but I think of it like, oh, maybe there's a little clump of taller grass growing in there. And it's natural to want to plan it out and have each individual clump evenly spaced, but we don't want that. We don't want an HOA here. They can be gone. We want wild field that nobody touches except people who want to come pick flowers. And you can occasionally keep adding a bit more water to your paint. If these aren't showing up, add a bit more black to your color, but they should be a level darker. My brush stroke technique, I'm holding my brush about halfway back. You can hold it further back if you're pressing too hard, if you have a tendency to do that. So the downside is you have a little less control by holding it way back here, but the upside is you're not ending up with gigantic thick grass blades that don't look right. But the movement is just a quick little flick, and if you have just enough water mixed with your paint, you'll be able to get a few of these out of that before having to redip. And your brush shouldn't drag. So if your brush is dragging right out of the chute, right out of dipping it in the paint, you don't have enough water in your paint. It's the hardest part is explaining how much water to mix because you can't really see it. You really just have to feel it. Now you can also create some longer flower stems that we'll add later. So what I did when I originally designed this, I did some longer pieces and then maybe some little dabs on either side like they're leaves. So it's like we're drawing flowerless stems right now. I didn't attach every single flower to one of these, but I did a few of these in there. So basically what I'm drawing is I'm going like this, and then I'm just sort of dabbing on either side to look like impressionist leaves. We're not drawing perfect individual leaf shapes, we're just sort of dabbing them into the shape of a clump, a leaf clump. I'm just about done with this. I really like the way this looks even without the flowers, although those stems need something. Forcing myself to put some right next to each other because I can tell I'm HOAing it right here. That's our new verb. We're HOAing it.
You're really concerned about the HOA tonight. Did I leave the garbage cans out again?
No, but our driveway, the cracks in our driveway have weeds, and they're going to send us a letter.
You got hands too.
My hands are too busy mopping and dusting and toilet cleaning. And
enter the competition. Where would you like me to install the scoreboard at home?
In the backyard, so it can be nice and lit up. Okay. Now we're looking at step 6. So we flip-flop some things around, which is good because we had the wet paint already that we needed. We are going to add, in step 6, we add some of the pale orange highlights to the clouds. Now that's optional, you don't have to. So have a look at the two together. And if you like the look of this one with the pale orange, then you can follow along with me. If you want to keep it on the just pink, then you can leave it as it is. We're going to be using our number 8 brush again. At any point too, you can change out your water. You don't have to. If you clean and dry your brush, even if it's in dirty water, if you dry it off really good, see how I'm squeezing the water out of it, then that can help get it nice and clean. What did I mix for that? Okay, magenta. Okay, wait. I already had, okay. We'll be adding pink to the lower part of the clouds. We already did that. Oh, I flip-flopped these. I see what I did. Okay. Yellow, white, and a touch of magenta. So I flip-flopped 5 and 6. It doesn't matter what order we do. Yellow, white, touch of magenta. That's going to give us our pale orange. It's weird teaching the paintings when it's been so long ago that we designed them. Because I know you and I are used to just like everything being, we design the painting, we ship it out, and we teach it.
We designed the painting 2 weeks ago.
This one we designed the painting quite a while ago. So there's my yellow and white mixed together. And I'll add a little magenta. And this is where you control the color. So this is kind of a pale, not quite peach, not quite coral. I'm going to try adding a little more yellow to it. That's a really golden, nice color, but I'm gonna add a little more magenta. The more magenta you add, it's gonna turn more yellow. I mean, more orange, sorry. I feel like on camera, or at least on this particular monitor, it's really paler than...
It's hard to know exactly how it's going to look on other people's.
Yeah. I think I maybe had just more white than I needed at the start of this. So I have a lot of paint on my brush from mixing, so I'm going to wipe it off. And now we can add this in and among our pink. You can add it on top of some of the pink, on the very lower edge of the clouds, or even above the pink, just kind of intermingled. Definitely add some down here. You can create more wispy clouds out of this. So think of this as the sunlight is sort of kissing the bottom edge of these and turning everything golden and peach and pink. Feel like I'm getting to where I have just about enough of this color.
Had just about enough of this color.
Just about enough. And now if you want, you can add some to your mountains. Just a little. Maybe add a little water to that paint. And then smooch everything over. I'm not adding much.
I don't add much.
Don't add much. Just a little. This one in particular, I felt like this mountain got maybe a little too subtle and needed a bit more vibrancy. So I'm going to add more of this color. And if you feel like you overdid it, just go back to some pink and add some pink to it, or even go back to your mountain base color and add some in there. I'm going to put a bit over here. You just did kind of a voila type of move.
I'm feeling done,
Like
but
Salt Bay.
getting close.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to take a look at my clouds on the monitor. There's one pocket that's drawing my attention, and it's right here. And it's because I kind of have this harsh, like almost square shape here. So I'm just going to soften that up with a little peach. And it's like it never was. Okay, you know what I'm going to do too? I've got some of this peach color left. I'm going to add some bits of that down in here. In fact, I'm going to add more yellow to it. So it's a really deep golden. So you can see right here I added more yellow to it. And I like to add bits of that down into this lower part of the field, which to me ended up looking on mine a little bit too solid beige. So I'm just adding little flicks or little touches of this yellow color, just way back in the back part of the field. And then if you need to overlap the edge of your shrubs back there at all, you can do that. Just kind of create that grassy texture, but real short grass because this is a lot further away. I don't even think this is in the instructions. It's just something I noticed on mine. Here, I'll zoom in and show you exactly how I'm doing this. So I'm just taking the brush and just flicking it upward. Little short flicks with kind of a little bit more golden based beige color. Okay. Out we go. Let's flip the page over. We're gonna add the sun next, and then we're gonna highlight, and then we'll highlight these. And wash your brush off. Now for the sun, you can use your fingertip or you can use your brush or a combination of both. So I'll just take my number 8 brush or any brush, any of your smaller brushes. You can add a dot where you want the sun to be, and you can use your fingertip and kind of swirl it out into a hazy circle. Let your fingertip just run out of paint. This one shows up really nice. I must have a little bit darker gold going on. If you use your brush, just start in the center and brush outward until your brush runs out of paint. So that looks nice. I like it. I could even add bits of bright white under the sunlight because my sun is so bright. It makes sense to add some bits of white right under it. But not a lot. I started out with maybe a little bit too much. I'm just kind of spreading it around. Okay. Now let's get some lighter green on these shrubs. So we want to mix a yellow with cyan and white, and it doesn't really matter whether you use yellow ochre, plain yellow. I'm gonna be different. I think our instructions say to use yellow ochre, but I'm gonna make a different green this time, just for fun. For funsies. So this makes a real Kelly green when you mix those two together, the cyan and the yellow. So I'm adding some white to it. Now that's too minty, so I'm gonna add more yellow. And then I think I am going to scrape in some yellow ochre because this is just a little bit too wrong. So maybe my original instructions were right, the yellow ochre, but I'm just going to add a lot to it. So you can see that dulls it down, which is what we need. Yeah, this is about the right color. The other one was a little too kiwi and then minty. I'm going to wipe off the brush because I have a lot of paint from mixing, and I will come down here and zoom in. You can see my bright wrong color green there. So this color, there we go, like that. And I'm just gonna dab it along the top edge of these facing the sunlight. Letting my brush run out of paint. So some sides of these shrubs are going to be away from the sunlight. They're not going to catch as much light. But what you want to avoid is you don't want to do like just one, like this is what you want to avoid. You want to avoid going along and outlining everything because that doesn't look right. But this looks more right. So what I think of it is I think, okay, the sun's going to come in. There's going to be shrubby part of this bush that sticks out right here, maybe. And then maybe the top edge here, but also a part here. So if you start thinking of these items as three-dimensional, that's what's going to be helpful with painting more realistic looking highlights. when you're out and about, taking a walk or whatever, really look at trees and how the sun works and how there's deep parts that are really dark and then there's lighter parts, but the whole thing is round and three-dimensional. A lot of painting is just learning how to see things and notice things, and it will come with time. Like, not everyone's born with that ability, and I think as we get older, it's takes a little bit to go back to where you're really noticing a lot of those kinds of things. And the more you paint, the more you will notice it. That's what all my Vine Go students used to tell me. They'd come in and they'd be like, "It's so weird, but I'm like noticing things and thinking, how would I paint that? Or that would make a good painting." And they're really excited about it. I think that's great. And I hope you guys have been having those feelings too.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of one of those things where like people generalize what things look like.
Yeah.
Like in their minds.
Like tree is a stick with a ball on the top.
Yeah.
No, it's so much more than that. Okay, what I'm going to do now you could, if you want, you could add some of this lighter green color down in here, but we really don't need to. But I do want to add some yellow in there. So I'm going to wash the brush, and I need to check and see if I used which yellow I used. Yeah, just yellow. I just said yellow highlights. So I know in my mind I was thinking this one, but you know what you could do? You could mix that the two yellows together. So the really bright lemon yellow with a little yellow ochre. You want to keep it on the golden side so it kind of matches the sky color and everything, and dab your brush off before you touch your canvas with it, and just come along and hit the top edge of some of these trees, thinking not just the top edge along here, but the top edge of some of these tufts that would be on the other side, just to add yellow, just to bring that gold into this part of the painting. And this really works to soften, if you want to soften up your tree line. Like this one that I did originally has got a very soft tree line along here, which is great. This one has a harsher tree line, and I can soften that up by taking the color I was just using, which I didn't mix quite enough of. And you can just come along the outside edges. So you're almost creating a new edge. Just like we did with our clouds. I'm even swirling my brush around a bit here. But you don't need to soften it. It can be a more high contrast piece, more high contrast part of the painting. It's fun sometimes, and you probably see this too, Paul, with your own stuff. Some paintings, when you teach them, your replication is almost exact, and then others, there's, quite a lot of, wow, that's different.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like, as you work through things, they come at you differently.
Yeah.
The second time through.
Probably, especially the longer time that passes between painting it. Okay, I'm done with those, but you can see how they do look somewhat three-dimensional just because of thinking of it as a round object as opposed to a flat where we are highlighting just the top edge. And now I think we can get the flowers going. We already did some of those stems. We've got that out of the way. I think that's in step 8. Yep, we've already done step 8 a couple steps ago. So step 9 says, now you can add flowers of all types and colors. We aren't painting actual flower shapes, just dabs of color, impressionist style. And when you put a center in the flower, even that little dab of color, which especially with these poppies, it's just a little round dab, and then I use the handle of the small brush in black and dot a center on those poppies. And you look at it, and there's pretty much no question it's a flower. But I did not take the time to paint individual flower shapes because it's not necessary, and this gives it a really impressionist feeling, which we definitely have with these shrubs back here too. So now you get to choose colors. We used violet, lavender, red, orange, which is made by mixing magenta with a very small amount of yellow. So that's going to give you an almost red. That was one of my concerns with this color, the box of colors we got, is there's no red. But Paul had said the idea of red with this is to mix a little bit of the bright yellow, so this yellow here.
The process yellow.
Process yellow, that's right, that's what it's called, with magenta. And it's just a small amount of that, much more of this. And it does give you a color that I would call chrome orange, because we used to have a color called that in the studio that looked just like that. And it's very red. Like, you can look at this and pretty much say, that's pretty red.
Essentially, all you need to do is warm up the magenta a little bit to bring it into red.
Yeah, and so that's what makes the poppies. And then I did put some pale yellow little dabs in there that would be some kind of buttercups or whatever kind of flower. But you can do any flower colors you want. If you want to do blue flowers, absolutely. But have fun with this. Let's see. I think I'm going to do the poppies a little bit later. And we're almost done here. We actually will be done in maybe just a few minutes or so. Washing my brush. I think I'll start with the purple. So I'm going to create 2 purples. You don't need a lot of paint. So I'm going to create a violet, like a grape soda violet, the color we created several times in this painting by mixing cyan and magenta. And then I'm going to take and put white in half of that. So you have a dark and a light. And what I'll do, zooming in here, I'll go through and maybe dab some flowers shapes, just dots. You could pick a blade of grass even and just put a little dot on the top of it, or a row of dots. And then you can do these with the lighter lavender color and then come back. I'm just going to show you right now. You can come back with the darker lavender and add a little dot on the other side, or as its own separate flower. So, sometimes you have those flowers in nature that have both light lavender and dark lavender in the same flowers. I'm thinking of like, what are they called? Petunias? Right here? I think so.
Something like that.
Yeah. And when I did the original, rather than working one color at a time and then going to another color, I tend to skip around. So I'll be like, okay, there's some purple. Now I think I'm going to mix up some pink. Very purple-based pink because I got colors going together. And I'll add some pink dabs in there.
One thing I like to do when I'm doing flowers like this is, like, if I pick a color, like say we're doing the purple, I'm going to do all those purple flowers in a similar shape.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I change colors, I'll do a different shape.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did with the poppies. So if you think of like foxgloves, they grow, or what's the other one?
Lupin?
Lupins. They grow like in a cluster all on one stem, so you can totally do that. Mine didn't really show up with the pink. I can even come in with just plain magenta and load some of those in there, so you have 2 different pinks going on.
And one of the things
that's... You can make lupins anywhere. You don't even have to attach it to a stem. Just have some, I
was actually just going to say, it's really important to kind of pull these down into the body of your shadow.
Make sure you're not just putting them up
at
on
the top.
top.
Yeah. That's probably one of the #1 things I've noticed when we do wildflowers, that people have a tendency of just sticking them...
HOAing it. No, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like rather forgetting about this bottom edge where we have some that are going off the bottom. And then I might go to white. Obviously, there's sometimes little tiny white flowers in nature. You can switch brush sizes too. You can always use the handle of any of these brushes. But here I'm just clustering little white dots, like thinking of it like baby's breath, or actually, does baby's breath grow in the wild, Paul, or is that
I'm
just
sure
a
it does.
florist's creation?
I'm sure it does.
The white really stands out. So in the original, even I didn't use much of any white at all. You can see, I think there's just two. I started adding it, and I was like, oh, that's a little
I think it can
harsher
be
than I want it to be.
Yeah, especially on a painting like this, it can be a little bit much to absorb.
And if you have some of your light green that we highlighted back here, I mean, you can add some. You don't just have to have flowers here. You can have more like leaves and moss, and just dab some things on there in green. It's your garden. You can make it however you want. I'm going to bring some more purple over here. A round brush, like a round brush of this size would be great here, if you have one at home. Like this one, your smallest brush is a little bit too small. And you can get some really nice detailed flowers in there, but you'd be working on it for a while, and it might be too much detail for what the rest of the painting is. So I feel like this is really catching my eye a lot, and I could just bring some over here to balance things out, or I could come in with that green I had left over, which I don't have much left over. I think I need to make a little more. And I could just sort of dab over some of those so they're not so noticeable. I really used the yellow ochre tonight. It was the color of the night. Hardly any black though.
Black's overrated for paint. People rely on it for contrast, and you don't have to.
Yeah, it's good to learn to be able to use other colors for contrast. So there I just sort of softened some of that up. Let me get a little more pink over here to balance it. My pink is pretty muted because it has a little, the cyan, or I'm sorry, the magenta on my palette has some cyan in it. So I'm just gonna say that was the universe telling me I needed a more muted pink. And before I start doing poppies, I do want to get some light yellow buttercup type of flowers on here. And that's just yellow and white. And that's not your yellow ochre, it's your lemon yellow, your processed yellow. All my colors are starting to be very polluted. Look at my palette, it's a work of art. So about equal parts, maybe a little more yellow than white, if anything. Kind of making a lemon curd color, or a buttercup color. And you can dab some of those in there. I think I have a lot of paint on my brush, which is why it ended up looking really harsh. I might throw a little more yellow into my mix. Another thing I could do is I could add some yellow ochre into there, but I'm plain out of yellow ochre, and I'm not going to add any more. So I just use less paint on my brush. So you can see the difference, like over here, this flower area is a lot softer than that first one I put on. So a lot of times what I'll do is just feed my brush from that original dot. And one thing I can do, this does, you know, it keeps drawing my attention to it, and that's probably because I pointed it out. So I could put a poppy over that. The yellow really stands out. So I'm gonna make my poppy color now. Guess I need a little more cyan. Okay.
You mean magenta?
Yes. Sorry. Why do I keep calling it cyan? I think I've done that several times. So here's my magenta. And you just need to add a little bit of yellow at a time. And you'll notice right away it turns to a dark orange. So what the yellow does is it takes out that so much of the pink. That's a good poppy color. And the poppies, I just kind of make a circle. I'm just gonna add a little more magenta in there. Here, I'll put one over that. This is nice because it is muted, and it adds such a nice pop of color while still being muted. So this is better than the yellow in my opinion, but any of these yellow ones I can just paint a poppy over. And poppies tend to grow in little stands. If you wanted extra credit, you could put some hints of some poppies way out here, but that can be dangerous.
It's not that dangerous. You know, it's just paint back over it.
Yeah, you can always paint back over it, but think of it like they're little tiny dots with not a lot of paint. But now what I do is I use my smallest brush, and I use the handle end. I'm gonna stamp it in my black paint, which has a skin over the top. And then just come through and stamp the center into the poppies, and look at that. They turn into flowers. Now you can put centers in any of your flowers. In my original, I just did it in the poppies. A lot of my poppies just inadvertently ended up being the same size, so normally I'd probably go back and paint some smaller ones in there to break it up. What's beeping? Oh, we're done anyway.
It's out of water.
You can turn it off.
It turned itself off.
Okay.
I mean, it turned off the water pump part.
So I could, like some of these pink flowers that are larger, I could put a white center in them. But again, the white really stands out. Or yellow. Yellow would be a good one to use. Like just plain process yellow, not mixed with white. That one's a little harsh. Yeah. Super cool. Zoom out. So there we are. Right, this is a 2 paper towel painting for me. And you'll want to sign it somewhere. You know, I'm going to sign it in the light yellow. I've just gotten to where I just put my initials. You can also sign the back. You can sign on the back part where the wood is. My signature's gonna just blend right in with the yellow flowers. That's okay. It's hidden away. I'm gonna compare it to my original. Let's get some stuff out of the way.
Fin.
Yeah, so you can see my new one has some features in it that are a little more high contrast. Like this especially is what I noticed. I have a lot lighter purple going on there, but I can really see that fog standing out in behind these shrubs, which I really like. And then again, these are a lot softer, but I think I actually like having them be a little harsher. I like my flower bed a little better on this one. Clouds are very similar. I do like the fact the sun shows up. So let's have a look at what Paul did. Ooh. So Paul. Let me zoom out just a little. Yeah, I like that. I like your clouds with all the pink and the dark muted. Your purple up there is more muted. It's got a little almost brownish grayish.
Mm-hmm.
Too. And your mountains too are a more muted color. But yeah, he's naturally very good at the highlighting on the mountains. For me, it's work. It's a lot of work. Like looking at this one, I might go back and add some more highlights over here just so it's not such a like light and dark.
I actually kind of struggled with them tonight.
I did too. It was weird.
I think I was between the visually struggling with figuring out which colors I wanted to use because I didn't want it to feel like snowy mountains. But then, because I didn't want them to feel like, okay, this is always the Cascade Mountains.
Yeah.
Right? So I just kind of was like, okay, well, this is what it is. So I made.
So you what?
Yeah, that's all.
Let's have a look at your next painting for next week. Thank you, Marlene. And yes, Daniel, I agree with you. The first one is a little more Van Gogh-ish, and the second one is less Gogh-ish. It's right up there. It's on the shelf next to the wooden man.
Hello, wooden man.
So next Friday, right?
Oh, wow, look at the clouds.
Very similar. This is what we get to do. I'm excited for this one. This is called Reflecting on Summer. Reflecting on Summer. Now, is this any spot in particular?
Yes. Your favorite place in your imagination.
Okay. I see it as, it reminds me of Trillium Lake, actually.
I can see that.
Except for this.
Maybe Timothy.
Yeah. So those are just really pretty
Lost
lakes
Lake.
In Oregon near
Could be
Mount
a
Hood.
river.
And yeah, the clouds are very similar to what we just did color-wise. And they kind of have that like fuzzy,
I don't think either of us
thing.
had even looked at each other's painting, and then this is just kind of what we came up with.
And you said there was one part you thought would be the hardest for people in this one. You thought it was the water, but for me, I think the water looks like easier than some of the other water paintings you've had us do.
I think maybe we may, there may be a little adjustment to the instructions as we go with the water. I think the hard thing on this painting is getting this color to look right.
Kind of a muted lavender.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah, it's kind
It's
of
actually
this,
very similar to what you used in your clouds tonight.
Well, the thing that gets tricky with this is it's really easy to get too light with it.
Let's zoom in on that color.
Yeah, it's really easy to get too light.
Trying to get that lighting right.
No, it was fine.
It's like a pinkish, grayish lavender.
Yeah. But it's really hard to get it, like sometimes people go too light with it or they go too blue.
Okay.
And too blue is...
Speaking of blue, I really love this down here.
Yeah, that's a
And
fun
how it
color.
reflects that, ties it all together.
Yeah, so where we run into trouble is we use this color to be a highlight in the darker areas and then a shadow in the lighter areas. And if you get too blue with it, it looks out of place.
Yeah. So one thing, when I went to this art gallery, and this, I'll just say this real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I went to the art show on Sunday at a winery, and there were a lot of people there who didn't know a lot about art, but a lot of them knew that I had an art studio and did paintings myself. And so I started telling them that one of the things to start looking for in paintings, just for fun, is the use of the rule of thirds. And I think after you've painted for a long time and designed paintings, it actually just comes naturally and you just start doing it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you might look at a painting and see the skill is there. It's amazing. The person is obviously very, very talented, but something's off about the painting.
Like this horizon line is a little too close to the middle.
And a lot of times what's off is they haven't followed the rule of thirds. Now, sometimes you can break that rule and have it look right. But a lot of times it has to be in there. So like with Paul's, like this is the bottom third. We've got the middle third with this really dark, and then the top third here. And then same with the one we just did. We have the field is 1/3, the mountain range, and then this whole sky. So what it does is it keeps your eyes moving across the canvas and everything just looks right and it looks balanced.
Yeah, so typically what you want to do is you want to put your horizon line either a third of the way from the top or a third of the way from the bottom.
Yeah.
Or if you don't, you've got to find another way to trick the eye into feeling like that is cut, like that separation is the top third or the bottom third. So
it was fun though, seeing everybody. They were going around and like really scrutinizing the paintings, and this particular artist followed the rule of thirds very well. So it was.
Well, you can get extremely mathematical with it because you can get into what they call the golden ratio, which is the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes.
And then, to just give you guys a simple understanding that you might visually recognize, is if a cross section of a nautilus shell, and how that progressively gets narrower as it goes through the curl.
Mm-hmm. But everything's like
the nautilus
perfect.
shell that is like the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio, 100%.
Oh, there's probably all kinds of YouTube videos.
Oh, there's lots of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think like fiddlehead ferns when they're first coming up are the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's like you can literally draw it out over a nautilus shell, and you're like, oh, there it is. And there are a lot of artists that use that in a lot of their planning.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do a video on that sometime. Not part of the subscription, but just talking about, because that's a compositional thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's go back.
Let's go back and say goodbye and go eat Mexican food.
Let's go eat Mexican food.
There's a Mexican restaurant up the road that we've always thought if only they had good food, because we tried it out maybe 3 or 4 times. We're like always hoping it was like maybe it's just the one time we went.
So I think we're gonna try it again and just.
It's a new restaurant now, completely different. No, I think it's a brand new. Really, has it always been that one? But they hung a new banner out that says now. I think it's La Sierra or something.
That's what it's been.
Okay, well, we'll see.
I mean, I was looking at the Yelp reviews, and the Yelp reviews go back 2 years for it. So.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll see.
We'll give it a go.
Maybe 6th time is the charm.
Maybe enough margaritas and it's all good.
That's right. Okay, so we will see you guys here next Friday, same time, same place. If you happen to do the painting that I just taught in between, then please post your paintings if you feel comfortable with that on our Facebook group page, which if you haven't joined, please join. It's Gogh Art Crate. And we'll be posting we always post the upcoming paintings on there, so you get a sneak peek.
Yep, we do.
Yeah, so we're going to say goodbye and see you guys next time.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.